Blog Talk USA. Are you tired of waiting for change? Tune into Blog Talk USA. Let your voice be heard on Blog Talk USA.
What's up, world? Brandon Johnson here, the Gap 2 guru of Gumbo. Once again in your ear like we are every Thursday night at 8 p.m. sharp. You are listening to Blog Talk Radio. The station is Blog Talk USA. And I'm glad to be here. We have some little changes tonight that I'm not going to bother you with, but we're going to delay listening to our national anthem before we start the show as we typically do, but we will play it in a few moments. Tonight, we're talking about us versus us, or if you put the periods in there, the U.S. versus us. And us, yes, I mean black people, but I would be remiss if I didn't include any other marginalized, considered to be second-class, categorized as person of color or minority, or a person that's just underappreciated, underestimated, and undervalued. We're going to talk about a lot of the stuff. I mean, what I'm seeing in the news, of course, I don't watch the news, but of course I read it, and you can't get away from what we're seeing. Every single day, there's something idiotic, imbecilic, rudimentary, infantile coming out of our current government. I don't know why it's so, but like a good friend told me earlier today, what we have in Madoff Twitler, that's his name. That's what I've coined that phrase. If you ever hear it, I coined that phrase, Madoff Twitler. That's a mixture of Bernie Madoff, Adolf Hitler, I almost said it, and a person that tweets a lot. And I think that there's only one person that you all and I could agree fits the bill on the name Madoff Twitler. The audacity to him being the best thing that has happened to us is simply amazing. Because let me tell you, the reason why is simple. The stuff that's being exposed that once was hidden, clandestine, just simply whitewashed, trivialized, is now every day, and the purpose is intentional, yet not recognized by even the people who are committing these heinous acts, lack of compassion, and just simply meanness. So, if you had a question about what you felt about the topic of the show, just know that that is it for tonight. We have the lines open for those of you that are listening via the internet. I know that many people listen online. They listen to the web player. They listen to the app. They listen through Tuned In and other means of listening to the show outside of the phone. But I want you to know that those of you that are listening in that manner, you have another method to listen, and that is via phone. And also by using the phone, you're able to call in. So no matter if you're listening online or listening through the phone, I want you to take this number down or save it in your phone for the Gumbo Mix. And the number is 515-605-9375. Got it? 515-605-9375. And if you're out there listening by any other method but the phone, you can try that out. And you can chime in tonight, because it's not a show unless we have everybody participating. And I don't mind talking, but nobody wants to hear me. Well, I guess some of you do, because you do it week in and week out. But I'm simply amazed. But I think it's a much better use of the term gumbo when you participate. So, again, the number is 515-605-9375. You can use that to call in, or if you want to really talk, you can just press the number 1, and when you press 1, we'll be able to see on our little hefty screen here exactly who it is, and we'll get you in on the call. And you'll be a part of the live show. I don't know when or where we got to the state we're in now regarding politics and extremism. Since the show, we had an incident over the weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia, where there was a rally protesting the taking down of a Confederate statue. And then there was a counter rally to the white supremacist protest rally, in which people were saying, let's try love. We're tired of y'all with all this hate foolishness. And what we want to do is call you out on this rhetoric that is coming out of the White House and out of the outhouse and out of God knows what other places. But it's just time that we say enough is enough, and we're not going to really tolerate you coming to our area with all this hate spewing mess and upholding the traditions and values of a losing effort in the Civil War on the side of the Confederacy. At some point in that time, there were many people who were beating and kicking and just being mean to people. And eventually, a person took a vehicle and ran into a crowd, killing a woman. Then there was an event that took place today. I believe it was Spain, perhaps Barcelona, and feel free to correct me or anybody that's listening if I got that wrong. I love for you to tune in and, keep me straight. But I believe it was Barcelona, Spain, where multiple people, we don't really know the total because the number went from 3 to 13, I know, when I was last looking at a story that came across my timeline, and I'm not sure, but let's just say a lot of people were killed in a similar attack that I just explained took place during a protest. Now, these were just people having a good time in an outdoor mall, but a car ran through the crowd, I think killing at least over 10 people and injuring over 50 people. And then not too long after that, in the same area, different part of town, another vehicle ran into a police checkpoint. I believe that's correct. And I don't know if any of the officers that were struck in that were killed, but definitely hurt being hit by a car. I know that we've been dealing with shootings and things that are all in the name of this or that or the third. But listen here, y'all. This extremism is killing us. I mean, there is nothing, I think, more damaging right now to friendships, to families, to society than this extremist attitude. One time, it was extremist attitudes towards black people. As a matter of fact, for a very long time in this country, there was an extremist attitude towards black people, and pretty much solely black people. I mean, there were some attitudes towards women, there was some towards Mexican and Asian, and there was some even towards other people of Asian or Pacific Islander descent, and there were some to people who didn't quite speak English as their first language, but nothing like it was to black people. Then came 9/11, and there shifted not 100% away from us as black folks, but definitely a shift towards people of, I don't, for lack of a better term, I don't like Middle Eastern, but Middle Eastern resembling folks. So that would be Indian-looking people from the eastern part of the world. And after 9/11, there was, if you looked like you might be from Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Egypt, you just were grouped into one lump group, no matter what your religious background was. But definitely, if you were Muslim, you were target one. But I'm telling you this, at the root of that, and at the root of this extremist support of the losing side of the Civil War in the Confederacy, and how those groups are extremely supportive of their history being propagated in public places, is just sickening. I even think some of the extremist attitudes that some of the people that I even study sometimes and listen to, I study all kinds of people, but even some people in the ultra pro-black movement, I'm like, why are you arguing of who is blacker than the other one? There's the black Israelites that says we're the true Israelite Hebrew people, and anybody else that doesn't claim it is nothing. Then there's some other extremist black groups that I'm like, okay, if everybody else is wrong and you're the only one that's right, how is that different than some of these other separatist groups that don't realize that you're marginalizing even your own culture, and there's not enough of you to go around, especially in America when it comes to black folks, but across the globe for these extremist white folks, there's not enough of you to go around to really support what you're doing. So why don't we support an effort that says, okay, look, if y'all don't like us and we don't like y'all, let's have a whole separate economy, let's do our own thing, and let's just divvy up everything equally and fairly amongst the groups, and everybody go on their own. But I guarantee you that's not going to happen. The reason why, extremist attitudes are so prevalent that there's no real sense that we can make to common ground our efforts by just simply wavering or saying we're going to give up something to get there. If you're an extremist, you don't want to give up anything because you feel threatened that your whole culture is going to be lost. How in the world white people in America feel like their country, their history is being wiped out because a racist, misogynist, a representative figure that even the family, the living family, and I'm talking about Robert E. Lee statues and other Confederate soldiers and general statues, those statues have no power. So why do you think if they come down, it's going to affect your culture or your history? I don't go to courthouses across this country as a person who works a lot in criminal justice systems and see any Martin Luther King Jr. statues in front of the courthouse. Now, there may be an area somewhere in this country where that is so. I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's in front of a school somewhere, a statue of Martin Luther King or another Malcolm X. I know it is in Philadelphia and areas in the East Coast where it's more inclusive and progressive. But let me tell you, for the most part, you don't go to public places unless they're privately funded or because of the historical nature of their efforts that was on the side of showing love to mankind and or a president or general in the Union or the United States, that you're going to find a statue that means or represents hate directly. Now, let's say this other side of it before people who support these statues being up get their panties in a bunch. I don't see any power in your statue, but I recognize your history, and I need to know what happened and who these people are just for my own sake. I'm sure over the years that someone, being my family came out of Alabama and Kentucky, respectively from my mother and father, that there was some kind of interaction with people in the Confederacy and our family. And if it was something that was violent, I'm almost certain that more times than the one or two that I know of, the white folks won. But even in winning, do you keep your flag waving when you have a flag for this country already established that I thought we were supposedly supposed to pledge our allegiance to? Now, your statues hold history, but history has its place in a museum. And I don't see anything wrong with folks raising their own money as long as they're not hurting me or mine or using money that I've paid through tax dollars to build and support for anything related to the Confederacy, because, again, it is part of American history, but it's the losing side. Losers don't get the privilege of being broadcast, publicly paraded around and having flags representative of their vision flown. You want to know why I know that? is because any area where it was a conquered territory, including the entire United States, if we just broke it down to, let's say, 3 groups, let's just say 3, and I know there were 4, but we're going to use the 3. We're going to use Mexico, France, and Spain, having had territories respectively in the United States as you move from west to east. California, Arizona, hell, all the way up to Washington State, Oregon, parts of Canada, over to Montana, and down will include Texas. And those, well, no, it will be Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, going that direction, Utah, and over to Washington State. There's no Mexican flags flown on the state capital. You go over a little bit to the east to Louisiana, to Arkansas, up through Kansas, Iowa, up through Montana, and over to roughly Ohio, Indiana. That was French territory. Maybe New Orleans, maybe, sometimes. But you don't see a French flag flown on the capital of any of those states. And such as for Spain, there's no flags in New York or Florida where the Spanish are flown in the capitals or in the county seats. So if we conquered certain areas that are now considered the United States, hell, even areas of Canada, although Canadians still speak French in certain areas that used to be occupied by the French, they're not France. It's Canada. And so there's a Canadian flag flown in Canada. And so on and so forth for countries in Africa, for countries in the European Union area, such as before there was no Yugoslavia and Reykjavik and all these Hungary and all these areas of former up north of there, former Soviet Union, Kazakhstan, all these areas that used to be part of either USSR or Asia. These areas fly their own flags now. They don't fly a Russian flag. So if we're supposed to be a U.S., the United States, then isn't it a culture of everybody banding together and saluting the one flag? Well, what I figured out for myself, and I'm not trying to speak for anybody else but me, when I realized that flag, the United States flag, with that blue corner with the white stars, 50 of them, and the 13 red and white stripes, when I realized that flag didn't mean as much to the people who claim it means everything to, and then I sit back and think about how many of those 13 colonies that the stripes are represented for treated me as a human being if I was in that era that they existed. Of course, those states still exist, but they're no longer colonies. They're either commonwealths or states. When I look at out of the other 37 states making up the 50, and I think about how many of them continue to have not only these statues, but statutes that limit the ability for people that look like me to actually have equal access and opportunity, even if I'm smarter than the next person afforded to me. Is just not really a fair playing field. I don't salute that flag. So I know that's rough. I know many of you are like, oh my God. But I cannot salute anything that doesn't necessarily stand on a promise or a premise that is inclusive of me. I just can't. Now, will I stand? Yeah, I'll stand. I don't just sit down. I don't kneel. I will stand. But I'm not going to mumble the words. I'm not going to put my hand over my heart or salute. I'm not going to do any of that. And I stand only because I know that the red stripes on that flag, what it means to me is the blood of my forefathers who sacrificed not only life, but liberty and strength and their pursuit of happiness that they once were on to build this country. So that red stripe on that flag means something totally different to me, and all I see is the blood of my ancestors and people who look like me that they sacrificed without any respect or honor given to them in any shape, form, or fashion until people literally fight to have it represented. So U.S. versus us, to me, is quite simple. The issue of today in America isn't exactly what it seems on the surface. And so our objective should be to erase racism, right? At every chance we get. Whenever it rears its ugly head, you should cut it. People struggle, though, with the efficiency in their efforts to eradicate racists and bigots and separatists and nationalists. But this show tonight, we're opening Pandora's box. I mean, with some tough stuff, but we need to talk about it. It might be a little spicy to hear that I am not going to utter the national anthem. I'm not going to utter the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm not going to salute the flag because of there's this thing at the end of the national anthem that says land of the free, home of the brave. I just feel like I have a free mind and a brave heart. So with that being said, since I mentioned the national anthem, hold on, we got a caller, area code I'm not familiar with. Welcome to the Gumbo Mix, caller from the 904 area code. Talk to us.
Okay, brother, my name is Tarhaka Amaana El Bey, and I'm down here in Jacksonville, Florida. I was just sitting listening to you, and I was enjoying the broadcast. And you remind me of myself sometimes when I'm in situations where it comes to maybe acknowledging something or pledging allegiance to something and stuff of that. I found out that I did have a problem a long time ago with that, and so there were some things that I didn't understand. But what I did for the past 15 years, I took the time to stop, and I asked my mother one day, because all this stuff come up about slavery and all of this business. I said, well, Mom, you never told me about our family back in the day when we were slaves. And she hit the ceiling. She said, we weren't never no slaves. We have always been on our own land and had our own stuff. My great granddaddy had 12 sons and 11 daughters. And she said where we was, the Ku Klux Klan would come around, and them boys would get out there in the middle of the yard and swing their jacket behind their waist so that the Klan coming through the woods on a horse could see them shooting irons. And the people that was in charge in the town had told them, don't go down there messing with the moles, because that's a different type of people. They're not like the rest of these people down here. They got their own land, their own horses, their own cattle, and all of this. And then I found out I went to my cousin's home down in Marston, Florida. And we were standing out in the land because I'd seen all the vast stretches of land going down in there. And when I started talking to her, asked her, I said, well, who owns all this land all around here that I'm looking at? She said, well, all of this was our land. And but what we had to do as the family members began to die off, we had to sell off the land. She said, but when you turned in on that street, all that land you see to the left and the right, all of it belonged to us. This was all our land. And so I began to do a investigation, and I found out there were two investigations that I had to do. The first investigation I did was on what I label is our story, all the way back to the beginning of time, coming up through Egypt, and then when I got to the borders of Africa, I looked across the Atlantic Ocean. I said, now I need to go across this ocean and do a complete analysis and investigation American continent, the South American continent, Cuba, the whole ball of wax, down into Mexico, up into Canada, off the coast of Florida, in the Atlantic Ocean, an investigation there too. And what I found was incredible. But now, after that, I stopped and I started doing an investigation on his story. You follow me? Two different things. Our story and his story. And so I come to the conclusion that my whole outlook and thinking and ways of doing things and the stuff that I do is completely, totally different. It bounces off of me when someone from a different race would call me the N-word about somebody's statue hanging up out there, because the way I see it is, brothers and sisters, a lot of us got land of our own. So why don't you, instead of complaining about something that's meaningless and worthless, to be honest with you, it's based on what I know, it's worthless to me, because I got to fight on the story, and I got our story. Why don't you take and erect a statue of on your land, in your yard, so you can bring your children out and tell them about the statue and teach them about the statue in your yard. You can erect a statue of Malcolm X. Erect a statue of Nat Turner so you can tell the story. Erect a statue of Harriet Tubman. Erect a statue of Khufu, Musa Khan Musa. Queen Nzinga, Candaces, and go on and on, and you can erect these statues. Because I pretty much did that. What I did was, the last job that I had before I left that company, I've been doing research on Queen Nzinga, the Queen of Angola. And I found out roughly right around the time when she was born. So what I did was, I went and took some money, and I bought the largest crabs, because I found out the girls on the job, they always talking about they love to eat crabs and stuff. So I went and bought two big giant tubs of them, and I set up a photograph of Queen Nzinga with a brief description and history of her up over the crab den with a sign attached to the buckets that say for ladies only, in honor of Queen Nzinga. This is her day, and this is a day that I will be celebrating. Now, Europeans, they got Christmas and Easter, Thanksgiving. Okay, that's yours. That's fine. But let me do this for my people. And what would happen is the sisters and brothers that come in and read it, and they were like, "Oh man, look what he done, man. Man, this don't make no sense." And I said, "Well, what's wrong with him?" And then here come the Europeans. He'll look up there briefly, just for a few seconds, enough to read that little Bible, and then he turn around and he walk away. Mm-hmm. And I'm standing there for him to looking at Billy, and I can't wait for you to say something to me about it, so I can really explain to you who she was and what she done. I can't wait, but nobody would ask me anything. So instead of getting upset, my position is, instead of getting upset about that, go ahead and throw you up some statues of your heroes and put them in your yard, and take your children and teach them about their ancient story. And then you turn around after that and do an investigation on his story and compare both stories side by side.
Right.
So that's the way I deal with that. And, it's odd to me, and it baffles me. It really does, based on what I know about myself and other nationalities. It baffles me how people consider themselves as abusers. That's odd to me.
Consider themselves what? Wait a minute. We didn't quite hear that word. Say that again.
White supremacists. You've heard that word before.
Right.
That baffles me. That's
right.
It is odd to me. And when you look at the record, do an investigation on the nature of your own people. Go all the way back to the beginning of time and come all the way up. Come through Egypt, come on down through the interior of Africa, and then go out the back door of Africa, get in the boat, come across the Atlantic Ocean, and start over. Then you can go to Europe. You can go to Finland, Ireland, and Scotland, and you can go to what they call in Australia, which is no such place, because every place had a name prior to anybody ever invading it. Everywhere.
Well, yeah, right.
So when you do this kind of stuff bounce off you. I had a situation one day where, on the same job, I was sitting out there, and I had a crowd of brothers and sisters sitting to the table out on lunch break. And here come the general managers. And they were wondering why the crowd was gathered. And they said, well, what's going on? I said, I'm teaching them about their ancient story, their ancient roots and their ancient story. And I'm also teaching them about history. And they said, oh, okay. So they turned around and left and finished. And when I got back inside, one of the general managers that go from company to company, he went past all the supervisors, all the brothers and sisters, to get to me. He said, I just want to shake your hand. I said, okay. I said, what are you shaking my hand for? He said, I just want to shake your hand. He said, that's all. He said, I'm just shaking your hand. That's all. I said, okay. And the rest of the brothers and sisters, they were coming to me, and the supervisor, they said, well, why do you want to shake your hand? What's so? Why do you want to shake your hand? I said, for the same reason I told you. I said, can't nobody respect you until you respect yourself. When you put yourself, your family, your culture, your people first, and everybody else on earth second, then you get some respect. But until then, you can't. And everybody does the same thing.
I agree. I can't help but agree with you, brother, on that point. I think and for me, I'm not perturbed so much by the statues. I'm worried more about the statutes that are in the courthouse than what's on the courthouse. But I'm going to tell you the statues. I guess my biggest problem is that they're on public property. And like you said, if they put those statues for those people on their own property, that should be so. I don't know what would go there. But if there's an effort to say, we're going to remove this statue that's on public property. That's why I emphasize public property. And you're spending my tax dollars to take care of something that I don't really feel inclined to do. I'm already paying for some things that I don't think I agree with, such as certain people to live at 1,600 in Washington, D.C. But the bigger picture, I can't help but agree with you, and where I would like to go with this U.S. versus us thing tonight is knowing our story, knowing our own history. And yes, Queen Nzinga and even Selassie over in Ethiopia and some of the other great, of course, he was the last king. A lot of people don't know that. He was the last king. But these stories, these people, if our people knew, then, and we talked about this last week on the show, but if our people knew the roots that we came from, like you said, from all the way over, you do an anthropological study. I always encourage anybody who really is interested, brother, do you read any of the, oh, dang, I done forgot. He wrote that book, Africanism to Barbarianism, Civilization. How did I forget that, brother?
You're talking about, that's Sheikh Anta-Diop.
Yes, that's it, Sheikh Anta-Diop. Him and Obenga went into Egypt, and because there was a controversy that arose about Egypt being a part of Europe, and the Egyptians were not black. Right. So what they did is they went in there and performed the DNA on them and proved beyond any shadow of a doubt and just laid the proof down on the table that they were African. And after that, Sheikh Anta-Diop and Obenga said, now what we finna do now, our next step is to go throughout Egypt to all the tombs and prove to you beyond any shadow of a doubt that all of them, all of the kings and all of the queens were African. And that's when they closed the door on the financial research that Sheikh Anta-Diop and Obenga was about to present to the world. They shut the door. They pulled the funding. Yeah. Just like they pulled the funding on Nikola Tesla, too. Just to be clear, brother, just in case somebody hears that, and you're absolutely right, it was carbon data testing that they did to prove the African, and they also did the measurements of skulls and bone structure, which shows you a distinctive difference between the European body and skull as the African body and skull. So I just in case somebody, because they didn't have DNA testing back then when they were doing it, but they did have carbon data testing, which is still good today to test anything that's claimed to be older than what you say it is or younger than what you say it is. And they proved that we were indeed first people, and that I can't remember that writer's name or that anthropologist in Germany, in Eastern Europe.
You're talking about Nature Knows No Color Line by J.A. Rogers, where it shows the Africans on the coat of arms of all of the royal families of Europe. And see, what has happened is this is what's happened. Most of what we're calling history was written by Europeans for Europeans, but you got to look at the timeline. Now, the Africans came into Spain and occupied and ruled Spain for over 780 years. But what has been covered up is the fact that you have hundreds of thousands, the same people on this continent. See, the state of Florida, all black, all the land owned by us, is ours. But what they have done is written you out of the respectable commentary of history, because just like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told you in his writings, the earth, everything on it, and everything in it belongs to you. You're the original man. We had a Chinese. This guy, he wanted to know, and he had quite a bit of money, and he had his own staff, he had his own laboratory, and he wanted to know if China was a nation of people on its own in itself. Well, I could have saved him some money. Told him no. So what he did is he did the research, and his video is right there on YouTube. And they asked him, well, what did you find? He said, we found that all of our roots were traced back to Africa. I said, I could show you that. And the oldest dynasty in China is the Exile dynasty. It's jet black. And the other Chinese don't mess with them. You all over everywhere because you was first everywhere. There's no such thing as a place called Australia. What was the name of the place before somebody invaded? No such place as the United States of America. What was the name of the place before you invaded?
Back up. Hold on 1 second. Yeah. Does anybody, do you remember that movie with it was set in Africa where the brother, they followed that brother in the tribe as he went across the Serengeti, and he was, it was like he was looking for the end of the earth, and he got to the ocean.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I don't know the title of it.
Yeah.
He was traveling across the land. Yeah.
Yeah, but most of y'all remember that movie. It wasn't a whole lot of talking, but it was one of the first movies, even though it was only about 30 years old, 20-something years old, that brother he spoke with clicks in his dialect. But if you remember him, he was part of the tribe. If you remember his facial features, he looked what we think of today as Asian. He was black. He was an Afro-Asian, and I tell people all the time, brother, that I can't utter the phrase anymore, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and then associate that solely with white people. Even though that's the case in this country, we know that there are our people that have blue eyes and blonde hair. I mean, it's amazing because most of us don't know this, but we have black people, original peoples on the continent of Africa that have green eyes, blue eyes. They have more blonde hair than you can see on Marilyn Monroe in their head.
Well, you're absolutely correct, brother. I have a aunt that was like that.
It's just amazing, though, that we do get bogged down in the looks of a thing and don't get to the root of where it comes from. But go ahead. I'm learning
I tell you what now. You what you want to do? First of all, our problem is we don't have any power, and when we get power is knowledge, and the type of knowledge that you need is knowledge of self. When you look at the timeline, that's very important. You've got to look at the timeline. You say, okay, we know that when the African Moors built colleges and universities, the largest of which in Spain was in Cordova. It housed over 600,000 manuscripts. They built miles worth of paved streets and sidewalks with street lamps, and this happened in the 10th century. They built over 200 public baths, so a man could walk off the street, walk behind a wall, and take a bath from running water. But they were driven out of Spain. The Moors were driven out of Spain, and the last stronghold of driving them out occurred in 1492. And then they turned around and they outlawed bathing. See, it was a time when over in Africa, it doesn't matter where you came from or who you was. If you did not go into Africa to get an education, you were uneducated. Now, when we look at timeline, you and I know that Socrates and Hippocrates and all them learned from Africa. So a lot of people don't. You look at these people as being scholars, but you don't look at who taught them. Hold on 1 second. Well, hold on 1 second. We got another caller. Caller from 404. Is that Atlanta? I don't know where 404 is. I'm maybe off that. Welcome to the show. This is the Gumbo Mix.
Yes, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, brother. What's your name?
My name is Stanley Scott. Stanley Doc Scott.
All right, Stanley, talk to us. We're having a discussion. We're on the focus of talking about us, but whatever angle you want to take, or if you want to continue that, we're going to get back to Brother Bey in a minute, but I didn't want you to leave without me getting you in. So what's on your mind, Stanley?
Well, there's only one thing on my mind, African American people. But I do have a question.
All right.
If we are going to talk about African history, why we keep calling ourselves black? I don't understand that.
Okay, what's your take on it?
Well, I'm an African. My people is from Africa, and before the Great Divide, our country was connected. I mean, our land was connected, and
right.
But still, that doesn't make sense, because you're talking about empowering your people, and you got to give them correct knowledge. And knowledge is not power until it's put to use. But my main point here, we need to stop calling our people black. I mean, us ones who are conscious, because we are not black people. That's something been around only about 80 years in the United States. We was Negroes, which I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I can't get it out. But the point I'm making here,
Nigeria,
Nigeria, in the river, not darn, I can't get it out. I'm sorry about that. But the point I'm making here,
that's all right.
How you gonna connect and you're not putting out the right information? Because we are African people. There was only three. There was them Caucasian, them Asians,
right.
And us. Why we keep calling ourselves black? Words make a difference. Language, names make a difference. In order to educate our people and to bring that vibration together, we need to be able to give our people the right information. We are African people. We've been here in this country over 15,000 years. Yes, all of us did not come on slave ships.
That's right.
A lot of our people are already here. And if we're going to help the next generation and the generation after that, we need to get on the right track. And that will be a good start right there.
What state are you calling from, Brother Stanley?
I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, but one of my operations is out of Atlanta. I operate between Jacksonville and Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, I thought you had a Georgia number, but that's neither here nor. Hey, brother, stay on the line. I don't want you to go. I don't want Brother Bey to go. We got a sister from California on. Welcome to the Gumbo Mix. How are you this evening?
Hey, I love you, Brandon. So this is Colette. This is Colette. Let me turn my speaker off, okay? So, anyways, interesting. So I'm trying to form my question for you. So, I'm working with foster youth through the ages of 18 and 24. We had an interesting conversation last night, and I want to really focus on that idea of foster, because we know that children who come through the system come from homes, or were taken away from homes, and we could argue whether or not they should have been taken or not been taken, but these children have had terrible experience with their families, and I'm just speaking about this group. And so one of the things we know about forming our identity is having a cohesive community and having a cohesive household. And when you don't have that, so your reference point is somewhat not stable. So I want to know, I had a conversation with them, and I talked about some things with them in terms of their Africanness, like the brother said, not black, Africanness, and about this idea of them thinking that they don't have a culture. And so I'm wondering whether or not there's a brother on the phone that I've been listening to, very excited about his teaching. I'm wondering, what would you tell young people like I said, young adults who does not have a favorable view of the way they were raised in their community. And when you begin to start talking to them about a cohesiveness of the self. So I'm glad to answer any questions if you need some clarification of what I'm saying. But one of the things, the conversation that we started off with last night is that that I'm using their words, that black people don't have a culture. And I talked about what culture meant and the similarities that we do have. But it really came down to me that they were really talking about that they don't have an identity. So, brother, I'm going to put myself on mute, and I'm going to listen to your response to that. Thank you, Brandon.
Okay. That was to you, Brother Bey, also from Florida, 904. I got your line back opening. I think that question is to you. I hope you heard it.
All right. Well, I will do what I have done in the past. I was invited to come to a daycare, and what I did was, having the extensive knowledge on the different cultures and our story, as well as history, I explained to the children, and because there were, I think there were four Egyptians, Moors, and there was a little Hispanic child, and there was an Asian child in there. And I said, well, first of all, the first thing I have to do is I have to talk to all of you all separately, because you come from separate cultures or separate backgrounds, and from your homes you have separate teachings. So I'm going to start with the Moors first, the little brothers and sisters that were there, and I began to explain to them about their culture in Africa and America from our historical point of view. And then I got to the Asian, and then I got to the Hispanic, and gave everybody the teaching. So it's important for you to see what is happening inside the United States. This is what we have. We have one of the most dangerous things that happened to us, and to our detriment, was integration. And that's my opinion based on what I know. Because if you take a child, what you want to do is you want to tell the child the truth in the most fascinating manner that you can tell it to them, so you can hold their interest. Because what you want them to do is to regurgitate in their life and let it manifest in their life their true identity. There was only one major saying throughout ancient Kemet or Egypt, or whichever you prefer, man know thyself. And if you'll notice that our people have a real bad problem. We have this thing where we're trying to be multicultural to our detriment, instead of embracing our culture and our own story. If you go into a Chinese restaurant, a Mexican restaurant, a Mongolian restaurant, you would look at the menu and you would see food on the menu that's indigenous to their culture, but the restaurant is located in your community. So what are these people doing? These people are embracing their culture. But what we're trying to do in a lot of cases, we keep trying to learn everybody, embrace everybody, and be multicultural. Well, I don't think you can afford to do that until you embrace your own culture. So as far as the children are concerned, you're going to have to teach them and indoctrinate them in their minds the truth about their culture individually and the greatness and magnificence of their culture and what stood out in their culture. And then after that, then you can start teaching them collectively. So this is what needs to take place. That's my opinion.
Can I follow?
Okay, hold on, brother. Let me get. I gotta let this other brother. I want to let this other brother, Brother Stanley. You still there?
Yes.
Can you respond to the same question to give Colette your perspective? I want to give you a minute, 2 minutes to respond as well.
So, Brandon, is that clear? I'm just saying it's not clear. The brother who answered me, I don't think I have a clear understanding of what I'm saying. So, Brenda, I don't mean to interrupt, but I am looking for answers, and I just want to clarify.
Okay. Why don't you clarify your question, and then we'll let Stanley answer it, and then let him come back. So just clarify your question, and then let Brother Stanley.
I'm not talking about children. I'm talking about adults between 18 and 24, number one. Number two, I'm talking about former foster youths who have come from traumatized, violent communities, violent homes. So their anchor is something that they don't want to associate with. So they've seen nothing but badness from black people. So when you begin to start talking about the goodness, they can't see that. And so they're trying to divorce themselves from the culture that they know. So I'm trying to work with them for them to understand and see the beauty in who they are, not through glasses of violence and terror. I hope I've made myself clear, and I'll put myself on mute.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
I can
go ahead, Brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the only way to address that, to make that paradigm shift that's needed for those young men between 18 and 24, if I heard you correctly, you have to deal with spirituality. It's the self-esteem that you have to deal with. And that's the only way you can do that is through knowledge. Right. And you need knowledge of of knowledge. And I'm not talking about that American knowledge. I'm talking about world knowledge of Africans. Because we are some of the most powerful people that's ever been on this land to proven facts. Until someone has come up with some better proven facts, we are the most powerful people that have ever lived on this earth. And these young men out here, they need to know that. So you need to have leadership, which is an aptitude that you have in leadership need to be destroyed. You need to bring out conscious-minded people that are active in the community, because there's a difference between conscious-minded people that's not active and those who are proactive. The proactive, conscious African Americans need to go in these communities and talk about our history, the African history of what we have done, how we created the world. I'm passing it on to the next person.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that Colette, kind of the same thing Brother Bey was alluding to, but he was looking at a younger demographic when he was talking about the age group. But it's still the same answer for the brothers that really have never, even if they're 50 years old, and they came out of a system that was convoluted. It's getting back to the basics. It's like, okay, what you've seen is Ghost from Power, or whatever the guy's name is from that show Empire, or you've seen Pookie from, or whatever the guy's name is from Menace to Society. These are movies that people who don't know gangsterism, they can see it at least the way it looks like on TV. Or Bumpy Johnson, or Frank from American Gangster. If that's the only people they saw, that's the people that they've attempted to emulate, and they have either been successful or failed, but they've looked at the wrong individual to look up to. And what I think both of these brothers are alluding to, Colette, is we have to teach these brothers about Selassie and Queen Nzinga, and Marcus Garvey, any powerful black, African, Asiatic, whatever term you like to use, we have to teach them about the powerful, positive people in our history. And until they begin to know how much power is in the history, I don't think, like Brother Stanley was alluding to, I don't think they'll be able to understand how much power they have. I think this is my, and and we can talk about this anytime. I think the people who have really learned the power that black folks have are the people in hip-hop now today. Because although hip-hop comes from a much more modernized black culture, let's say the 60s and up, it is something that we created, and you can see other cultures trying to recreate and emulate, and you see the power structure. This is how you know it's something strong black. You see the Jewish and the Italian and all these other cultures coming in with these big major record labels and taking the music and paying the artistic person, the African creator of this style, and just convoluting it. That's how you know it's really successful. But then on top of that, Colette, not just what they see modern, but that ancient history with back, like we were talking about, through anthropological studies of first man all the way up through Kemet, Kush, or whatever area, Ethiopia was Kush, and Kemet in the northern African, and then how we migrated through all these other lands, and Mansa Musa, and all these powerful figures, so that they can say, oh, that's where I get it from, instead of something that is framed by what we created, but then it wasn't exactly regurgitated correctly, and we get the form of it, and thinking that somebody like Ghost, like I said, in Power, and the guy in Empire, and all of these figures that are doing things that are completely contradictory to who we are as a people. But that's the way society wants to see us, as criminals, as people who don't know much, and we all, like Brother Bay said, they think we all came from slavery. It's got to be there, or else we're starting in the middle, and it's too late to start in the middle. These brothers, no matter what age they are, but especially the foster care who have unstable roots, need to be grounded. We need to water them to show them that with just a little bit of knowledge, it'll catch fire, and encourage them to keep studying themselves and learn that, you know what, my roots aren't as shallow as I thought. Some of these brothers only go back one generation, and some of them don't even know their fathers. Some of them don't even know their mothers, right, if they're in foster care. So they don't really have any familial history. So you have to teach them history about how they got their skin color and where they come from, because that's something that we all come from. And that truth will hold water no matter when or where or how they get there. I had another caller on from the southern Louisiana area, and I lost them. But Colette, did you have another question?
No.
Or another?
I'm listening to. Can you hear me? Okay, Brandon?
Yes, Ken.
Okay, so I listened to all three of you brothers, and let me tell you what I took away, and then maybe you guys could add to it. I like when the brother said that the problem is that he didn't say this, but you cannot hold substance in a broken vessel. So one of the first things you have to do is build them up, and so once you build them up, you'll be able to start feeding them. And I love it when you said, Brandon, about, because you know that because I said, and they're men and women, by the way, but they're all African. And so one of the things that you said, Brandon, that I'm going to use is that I could talk about today's ballers, and I have quotes up, and how I could trace them back to the past, that in terms of whose shoulders do they stand on, and that they do not exist in a vacuum. They exist because we all are, because I am because we are, right? And so that I can begin to start talking to them that way, and begin to start talking about some way, because, you know, they were talking about, you know, all we do is kill each other, and all these kind of bought into all these myths that that they bring in, and one of the things that I struggled with them last night is that they kept calling up different cultures and saying how wonderful that culture is, and I'm like, everybody got some dysfunctionality to them, and the idea that you're idealizing them and then putting yourself down is another thing. But I really appreciate all three of you brothers. I'm going to take a little bit from all three of you to put something together, Brandon, and I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Colette. I'm glad that you're on, and I guess school is over, but I know you're still teaching. Okay, brothers and sisters, I hate that I missed that caller from that South Louisiana. I hope that they call back in if you're listening via the internet. I did see you from the 337, so feel free to call back in. And I see many other people that are on the line. Feel free to press 1 and get in the conversation. We're at 11 minutes past the hour already of 9 o'clock here in the Central Standard. That's 10 o'clock for those of you brothers in Florida and Kentucky. And for Colette, it's only 7:11. It's still daylight out there on the West Coast. So we are talking really about the U.S. or I would say this current American culture, this regime we live under, versus us and who we are. I mean, somebody has to say the tough stuff. Not everybody is built to say the same thing. I was at a meeting tonight, and I kind of left it late because it was getting really good. And I barely made it in time to make sure I could have started the show from right outside the doors there, but I'd like to get back to the lab where I have my notes and some things. But nevertheless, this meeting was about public education and how there are certain people in our governmental structures that tout that they are in office. Now, this is black, white, I don't care whatever color they are. It's not linked to one, but it's mostly white. And this meeting was filled with mostly white people. I was glad, though. I can tell y'all this, that here I sent out some invitations to several leaders in an African-American community, and most of those leaders were there. And I know that's odd for some of us in the South, but I was pleasantly surprised that the people that came were fellow leaders in our community. And the thing of the meeting was about public education, but it was more or less about how we educate a marginalized, undervalued, and underappreciated. You know, like Joe says on the Black Eagle. It was utterly amazing to hear this white man who is going to legislations and fighting. I don't know what I didn't stay for the whole gist of it. I don't know what his kick was or angle, but he was talking to mostly other white people with about 10 or 15 of us black folks in there. But he was talking as if he cared about students, and it seemed like he was talking about students that look like me. Now, I'm sure that he was inclusive of all the students that are in public education. The fact that there was a real distinctive push to get people to get active and say, hey, look, if you're going to pay taxes to these folks, you need to make them do what you want them to do and stop allowing these certain separatist, so-called supremacist, nationalist groups to come in and say, we're going to take the money that all these people put into the system and put it into a different school system. So what I'm saying is this. People, because of this current climate, remember I was talking about extremism earlier? Because of the current climate we have of extremism, it's now more important for us, I'm talking about us, people with the cocoa complexion, to begin the dialogue with one another, first and foremost of how can we reconcile, if it's possible, from some of the things that we've done to one another. But we don't do that quite often, and we forget that there was an influence for us to even have the falling out that probably wasn't internal. Probably was something we learned from this society that we're in, and we have a lot of areas that don't have brothers like Brother Stanley and Brother Bay and Colette and Ron and Sunshine. It doesn't have the type of people around that says, wait a minute, let me pull you to the side. That's not true. The truth is XYZ, and although you're giving this out as ABC, that is not the case. It's not true, and this is the truth, and I can prove it, and here it is. Chew on that, and now make a better decision. We don't have very many people like that. And the reason why I even brought up that meeting I was at before the show tonight, it was because the fact that I was so proud that my African brothers and sisters showed up. And I was surprised that many of them hadn't got the memo that this meeting was going to be taking place, because now we have a connection with one another, not only on some of the other issues of social justice measures that I like to focus on, but focusing on education. Because you know what? When you have a group of people that look like us that get together in positions of power, I think Brother Bay alluded to it earlier, we don't have much in the way of power because that's mostly economics, right? The lack of strong economics. There's only a few parts of this country that have strong economics. I believe Brother Stanley alluded to that. He had some dealings in Atlanta. Atlanta has some strong African brothers and sisters economically. So does, the East Coast, several areas there, Baltimore, D.C., Pittsburgh, some parts of Ohio, Chicago, of course, L.A. But we don't really look at what we unite on first. We tend to have these knockdown drag-outs about our differences, then don't talk to one another for months, if not years or decades, over something that with a little bit of communication and one person saying, let me just listen to this other person, we get left out on. And I think that's one of the things that ancient tribes used to do in bartering and dealing with one another was, yeah, we got differences, but we're here because we're about surviving and thriving. And so since me over here on the west, I have lots of minerals, I have lots of hard stones, I have lots of natural resources that come out of the earth, and then us over here on the west, right? Us over here on the east, we have lots of resources above ground in our jungles and in our areas of the Congo, and then we look at the brothers and sisters in the South and see the resources they have of rich knowledge and understanding of the ocean and fishing and the marine, and you put those together in your bartering, you make a thing happen. And there's not a bunch of really fighting amongst the tribes because you need one another's resources to thrive. And I think that's another thing we get mixed up with, why we're so far behind in a system that if we were together, we would still be the majority. We're not a minority. I don't like using the term minority at all. In fact, tonight I was talking to a person that was the chairman of one of the local school districts in this area, and we were talking, and I told her, I said, look, try to not use that term minority. I said, because your black children that are going to that school are not minorities. They're African, and I said this, they're African in nation. Let me tell you, there are more people of African descent on this globe than they are of your European descent. So they're not minorities, and we have to stop using that term with our young people, because just the whole terminology of minority and minor and minimalist, and it's just minuscule. It's just, to me, it's deadening the fact that they are a global majority. And so, at any rate, the fact that many in leadership positions came out. Of course, the topic was relatively neutral, because education, if y'all didn't know, is the new money. I mean, you without a little knowledge and a little book knowledge, it's hard to even tap into learning how you break this system down to flourishing. I would hope that more and more people would go to perhaps HBCUs and other universities that would nourish their history, but we have to teach our kids, and then teach them the sciences, math, sciences, and arts. They're universal languages. They're universal languages. No matter what country or continent you're on, they can flourish. Brother Stanley, it looked like you pressed one and then you pressed one again. Looked like you came back up. Did you have a comment?
Yes, I definitely have a comment. Yes, I have a comment. Yes, I'm with the African American Economic Recovery Think Tank, and we operate throughout the United States here. We have some operations going on. Well, we have some global operations through our connection here. But what my concern here is, I was talking to the lady, I forgot her name.
Colette.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
That's okay.
Well, I wanted to say something to her. Because she said something, I think, 18 to 24, some age range. But she was saying here, that we know for a fact that every time there's something, when it comes to males, there's a lot of times there's a female that's leading the operation. Let me just put it that way. And I mean nothing against her or anything here, but we need to have some male leadership stepping up to the pump, and we have quite a few. Now, there's nothing wrong with a sister organizing an event, but we need to have more male leading those events where there's men in the room. What we know for a fact here, a young African male, a youth, come up is pediatric, and I'm sorry, but throughout his life, he's around female teachers. Even when he go to the doctor as a baby, most of the time it's a female. We need to change that paradigm, that vision. I mean, we need to change that vision, because females running everything. Now, I understand that we have a lot of very few brothers who are engaged in the community. They'll get together, go to church so they can look for women and all that stuff, but they're not engaged in the community where it matters. Well, we need to look at that and try to have as many events where a male is spearheading the event for when you have a group of young men together throughout to our community. Number two, and I'm going to be brief, very brief here. One of the biggest issues I notice with our people here, African people here in the United States, we are waiting around for us to get together. Forget about that. The few that can get together, you all need to get busy. And we need to understand economics. We are not talking about economics. We talk about everything up under the sun but economics. And I'm seeing this across the country. And you can Google my work in Jacksonville. I'm located in Jacksonville, but I'm all over the country. One of the biggest issues now, we are not talking, we are the creators of mathematics. But we never talk about mathematics. That's one of the things we definitely need to understand. And we need to talk about home economics when we talk about economics or mathematics. Because everything operates off numbers. And we are not doing it. So I back away from the microphone. And
I appreciate you. I have your number down. I am going to give you a call after, soon. Not tonight. But
yes.
I appreciate what you added to this show. I don't know how you learned about the show, but I appreciate you for chiming in.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. But my brother is on the line there. He's the one who brought me in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That's
I'm gonna
that's
find
my
out
brother.
how
We went to school together. Yeah, we went to school together.
Okay.
We go way back. High school.
Yeah, y'all got some similarities. I can see.
We color get you. We color get you, man. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Anytime.
All right. Brother Bey, you're still holding line, and a lot of people have dropped off, but we still got a couple of folks on. Colette actually left out, but I'm going to relay to her what Brother Stanley had said. So I did a little run there. I talked about that mathematics and the sciences, and Brother Stanley brought it up about how mathematics. We created it, but it's something that it seems like our young children struggle with the most, and it's something we create. But I wanted to just give you an opportunity because I don't go all the way to 10 o'clock always on the show. I only have probably another 20 minutes or so that I'm going to be on the air. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to voice anything else that you had on your mind that you wanted the people to know. And by the way, I appreciate you, and I wanted to know also how you learned about the Gumbo Talk.
Well, by me being off today, taking the day off because I host my own blog talk radio show. It's Moorish Talk Live 100. I'm a Moorish national and a minister of education for the Moorish government in charge of the eastern seaboard of the United States. And I was browsing through the Who's On Live and listening to see what was going on. And if it was something interesting enough, I thought I would chime in and listen. And so that's how I ran into your broadcast tonight.
I appreciate
now,
it.
As far as the, I beg your pardon?
Oh, no, I was just saying the floor is yours. I appreciate that you found it and you saw the topic, and I just wanted to just keep that door open for you to
Okay. All right. I'm glad my brother Stanley, he and I went to school together, and I heard a little ding on Facebook, and he asked me what I was doing. I said, well, I'm over here on the radio. It wasn't that one. Okay, so I guess here we are. But I'm glad he brought up mathematics. And once again, when we start dealing with our story, he is correct. We created mathematics, and I can tell you some interesting things that we should pay attention to. Number one, the first thing that we're going to have to get right in our minds is time itself, and that deals with mathematics. And what a lot of us don't know is that real time was changed by Pope Gregory of the Vatican in the 14th century, where we went from natural time onto an artificial, man-made, constructive time, and this is what we're living in today. We got 12 hours worth of daylight. We got 12 hours worth of night. We are tied to the clock. We got 60 seconds in a minute. We got 60 minutes in an hour. Now, when you look at mathematics and you look at real time, which is governed by the 13 cycles of the moon, and every so many years we're in a moon cycle, and then every so many years we come to the sun cycle. Now, right now, today, I live natural time. I'm not a resident because I teach law, teach contract law, and when you come to my home, there's a gate up and sign says no trespassing. There is no address on my home, and that's there for a reason, because I live in natural time. People not knowing this are steady rushing. I got to get to work on time. I got to be to a meeting on time. But when you go back and you look at the science of time itself, then you can go back to dealing in natural time. And as far as the community is concerned, what we do is we teach people how to grow their own food. I build boxes so they can grow their own organic food, and so that they can feed themselves. Now, if you get in your automobile and you drive anywhere in America, you see signs. You see stop signs. It has a certain octagon shape. You see yield signs. It's shaped like a triangle. All of these signs have measurements and numbers. For instance, we'll take a circle that's 360 degrees, right? But when you add the numbers up, you got 6 plus 3 plus 0 equals 9. Now, if you cut that circle in half, you got 180 degrees. 8 plus 1 plus 0 is 9. If you divide it into 4 parts, you got 4 90-degree angles in that circle, and that 9 plus 0 equals 9. And it doesn't matter how many times you divide that circle up, you're going to come to the number 9. Now, that is what is commonly referred to as the 9 code. Supreme mathematics go from 0 to 9. All numbers on the planet. You got, excuse me, I got this infinite here burning. All numbers on the planet are confined within 0 to 9. When you get to 10, 11, and 12 and stuff, that don't belong there. And when we learn this science, then we can start moving forward. Now, years and cycles are under the same code. Last year was 2016. President Obama was in office. He came into office during the year of the number 9. And when we get past 9, we go back to number 1. We don't go to 10, we go back to number 1. So Donald Trump is in office now in the year of 1. So we do the math on the 1 code. Then we go to the 2 code. Then we go to the 3 code and the 4 code. These are sciences and stuff that we need to know. And then we have to look at what has been taken out of the school system. Civics has been removed. The art of money has been removed. The art of mating has been removed. The art of war has been removed. And these this is information that also should be taught to our children. It doesn't matter if a child is 3 years old or if he's 21 years old or 45 years old. He still has to be empowered with knowledge of self and everything that goes along with it. And when you get this kind of knowledge in these sciences and stuff, this is the stuff that you're going to regurgitate. Law. He needs to know about law. Politics. What is it? Now, there are two books that I would like to recommend, especially during this time period in the sun cycle that we are in right now. One of the books is entitled The United Independent Compensatory Code/System/Concept, a compensatory counter-racist code, and it was written by a gentleman named Neely Fuller Jr. The second book is the ISIS paper.
What's the writer's? Give me the author's name again.
Neely, Neely, and then Fuller, Fuller Jr., Neely Fuller Jr., The United Independent Compensatory Code. The second book is the ISIS Papers, Keys to the Colors. Now, these two books here are very, very important, especially in this day and age and what we're going through today in this sun cycle. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson explained to you the global system of white supremacy: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now, one of the most common but most dangerous things that we and all people on this continent are being victimized by, and a lot of people are unaware of, is the fact that we're being constantly bombarded by subliminal messages that's being picked up by the brain but not being seen by the eye. When you cut on your television, it begins. And so what is happening is you're watching a movie, regardless of what it is you're watching, and these subliminal messages are steady and printed in the stuff. They found out about it a long time ago. They caught Coca-Cola at it, and they sued them, but it's still going on. And the same thing is occurring in the music industry. So if we would go back, and I like to encourage every brother and every sister on this continent to create a library in your home to leave as a legacy for your children and your grandchildren while you're still able to get these materials. Reading, writing, and arithmetic is important, but what are you reading? What are you writing about? And what are you doing when it comes to the math? Do you know how to set up a trust? Do you know what is the structure of the United States? What's going on in America as far as politics is concerned? What happened at the Whiskey Rebellion? What took place here and what took place there? What is your ancient story involving the lost cities and communities and cultures under the Atlantic Ocean? What is the extensive knowledge?
I want to take a minute, though. I want to ask you a question. Because I have a brother of mine. He's Moor, and so and I also have a friend out here in East Texas. He's a Moor, and so I know a little bit about the culture, but I know your take on, not your take personally, but the Moorish take on voting and politics in this country. And if my memory serves me correctly, the Moors are of a different nation. You have your own sovereign nation. That's right, correct?
Yes, we have what is taking place as the prophecies was fulfilled since the Panamanian Conference, and Noble Drew Ali came in and told the world who the land belonged to that we're calling America, from the north and southwestern shores of Africa, the entire Atlantic Ocean, North, Central, and South America is Moorish land. It's owned by the Moors. The Moors and the Egyptians are one and the same.
But this is the question I wanted to ask, though. What is your take, personally, on how you see the national political structure in this time period, right now?
Okay, the way you're talking about as far as politics is concerned.
Yes.
Is that correct? Well, I'll put it to you in a nutshell. First of all, this game is owned by somebody else, and it's very difficult for a man to try to win playing another man's game. So what we have now is we have a very, very devastated situation going on, because we are still under the impression, first of all, that we can go in some college or university inside the United States and get a true and complete and solid education. That's impossible, because for people that look like me and you, because the first thing that is supposed to be put in front of the cart is the horse. They got to teach you who you are, your nationality, your ancient story, and there's nobody qualified to do that but you, somebody who look like you. So this is not being taught to you, and then they go straight into all of this other stuff about reading, writing, and arithmetic, but not teaching you about your identity. Everybody's embracing their culture, but your culture is against the law for this to be taught to you, because that empowers you. So that when you get that, now we're ready to start dealing with geography, with political science, and all of these things. So as far as the politics is concerned, we got politicians inside the White House that's been mentally indoctrinated, and we were wondering why they're not doing anything to serve us. They can't. It's not in their brain, and it's not in their instinct to do so because they're inside another man's game. They can't. They don't have the type of knowledge they're supposed to have. So that's my answer to that.
Well, let me ask you this. This is another angle for along the topic of tonight. There are, and I believe you would agree with me, just listening to you and Brother Stanley, there are secrets of knowledge that certain groups hold, and they hold them because the power is in the knowledge, and if everybody was privy to it, then they would have no more need of their group or society. Now, I know that the original Moorish people, and when I say original, I mean ancient Moorish people, created a lot of these, what we now know today are these societies and fraternal and sorority groups. But what is your take on people holding, I consider it, holding hostage knowledge? What do you think about that?
Well, some knowledge you can't release. You only release that information to people that you know you can trust with it. For instance, I could tell you exactly how the pyramids were built, but I don't tell that. Right. I don't teach that on open forum. There's some information that you cannot allow some people to know. I can show you things involving mathematics and stuff, but I can't talk about on an open forum. I can't do that. Now, when it comes to certain knowledge, there's certain things that I'm willing to talk about, and it could be verified, but then there's certain information that is dangerous in the hands of the wrong people. And so you can't do that. The same thing happened with Ed Scallion down in Coral Castle. He built Coral Castle the same way the African Egyptians built the pyramids using the same science. I know what it is, but everybody don't know that. Now, a lot of people do some research, but then you're going to have to come to a bigger conclusion than what you think you see. Go ahead.
This is the reason why I asked you that question and the way I asked you. I was in a conversation with a brother. I can't remember who it was. It was just on Tuesday of this week. And we were talking about why does it seem like Africans in this country, and at least for the last 300, 400 years on this territory, are treated the way they do. And what I alluded to with this brother was this. I said, because he seemed to come from an aspect of we are being punished for something we did. And I said, I don't know that we did anything but this. And I want to know, I want your honest opinion. I know you're going to give it to me. And the gist of this conversation was this. I said, I believe at some point in history, and I alluded to back with the first man, and he did something in giving up knowledge to somebody who had no business with it, and thinking that because our original nature is that of love and compassion and wanting to reproduce and wanting to live off the land. I mean, we live in a garden and there's people that don't eat, right? But we were actually having the conversation of I said that at some point we trusted somebody that couldn't be trusted, that we knew innately, we knew heritage-wise, we could not trust with these truths and this information. We gave it to them thinking, okay, this information is power. I'm going to give it to them because they're going to treat it just as I would. And when we gave up that piece of power, we gave it to a group of or an entity or a people that had no love or intentions of returning it back better than what we gave it. And when we did that, that was the beginning of our end. Now I don't know where that thought came up. I don't recall reading it anywhere. What is your take on that in the conversation we had of he felt like we had done something wrong, and I don't think we did anything wrong as far as something we did to the world or the earth. But I think we gave up knowledge. But I don't know if that's. Well, I don't know what your take is.
You're absolutely correct. In many cases, a lot of times there were kidnappings performed against our people because when they invaded the interior of Africa, a lot of the Africans saddled up horses and camels and stuff with documents, and a lot of them carried the knowledge underground, but some of them were kidnapped and taken to Europe and forced to divulge the meaning of the information. Then we have people who have sold out and told our enemies where the storehouses was for our future as far as knowledge is concerned. And they have gotten down in there and got a hold to the information. A lot of it they don't know what to do with, but we do because it's in our, it's inside of us. It's ingrained in us. Just like I was watching the other day where this diver went down near Bimini and went into one of our ancient cities and found a crystal. And he took it from his pedestal and brought it back up and put it in a laboratory and went to be messing with it with a magnet, and the magnet was moving all around and going all around. And I said, oh, my goodness, he done got hold of the wrong thing. He messing with what we had in Atlantis. He need to carry that back and put it back. So there's certain things that you don't, you cannot tell them, but you're absolutely correct. You cannot let your enemies sit before you and give them all of the information. You can't. That belongs to you only. That's for you and your people only. The Egyptians and the Moors are one and the same people. They went around the world not only teaching and bringing the light of civilization to the world, but they also brought gold so people could have the gold. But then there were certain things that was never released, and they threatened to murder the Egyptians if they did not teach them certain things. And then after they got the knowledge, then they went to burning down the libraries and destroying the books and stuff. The same thing happened in this hemisphere when they went into Mexico and they murdered the churches and killed the people and tried to destroy all of your knowledge and our story in this hemisphere, in Mexico, and covered up the fact that 95% of what they tell you in the Bible didn't happen in Africa. It happened on this continent. So when you go in this hemisphere, because when you look at the ancient maps and stuff, and this is what I was trying to tell you about how important it is for you to understand the depths of your story before you start looking at history. When you and one book will put you onto a lot of stuff that you might not know, and the book is public record, so I can mention it. The author of the book is Horace Butler. The title of the book is When Rocks Cry Out, where he describes the ancient maps and tell you what the names of the real names of the cities and states on this continent, and where Jerusalem is for real, instead of what we've been taught. Now, you correct about economics and stuff, but what I would like to do is at a later date, you got my phone number there. If you write it down, you can give me a call and stuff. And I'll be more than happy to come on to your broadcast. And if you line up some questions and stuff, and we can get this out. But you're right. There's certain information that I will never tell. I'm simply not going to tell it. I'm not going to put that out there.
Well, let me tell you, brother, it's been an enlightening. The thing about this Gumbo talk is just that. It's like every week we go to a different level, and I think we definitely did tonight, because talking about the topic U.S. versus us, it boils down to this: there really is no competition. Because one, there's no need in you getting into a fight that there's no one person has knowledge, the other person has power in might of numbers. There's no end to it. So what you have is knowledge, and if you didn't learn something tonight, I did. I had no idea that I would learn what I learned tonight. I've got down here 3 books that I'm going to attain: The United Independent Compensatory by Neely Fuller Jr., and The ISIS Paper, and When Rocks Cry Out. And I also have learned that someone always takes something away from here to help others. And this show is for the African diaspora, the younger generations in the African diaspora. And tonight I'm leaving here on a path to peace. I've had a reality check. I understand that the truth to power hurts, but I also have an expectant hope. And so, Brother Bey, I appreciate you for your candor and your profound message that you spoke tonight. We are going to end this blogcast tonight. I'm excited, but I'm excited in a different kind of way. And this excitement is that I have the opportunity to go and learn something else. I never go in a situation. I talked to my uncle last night, just real quick, last story. I talked to my uncle last night, and he said, "Nephew, I love the hell out of you, nephew." He said, "You always were one that listens," and he said, even though you may have some book smarts and you know a little something, you always are trying to learn something more. And that's why you're going to go far. I ain't got far yet, but I'm on my way. But I'll tell you, tonight I sat back, I listened, and you are darn right. We're going to have a show. I got these newfound brothers of mine on the East Coast. As a matter of fact, one of these days I might get out there and visit my little mentee who's got that. Remember, we talked about choices, and we talked about the person and the two different positions that they had to decide. Well, that person decided, and they're actually going to Florida. So I know I'm going back to Florida to see what's going on with that person in the future. But I'm also going to try to make a visit, since it's near the area of where these brothers are, to find out more about this Economic African Recovery think tank and the Moorish Talk Show on Blog Talk Radio. Y'all, it's been a wonderful night. This was the Gumbo Talk Show. We'll be back next week at 8 o'clock sharp on the Central Standard Time. That's 9 o'clock on the East Coast, and that's 6 o'clock on the West. Back with another show. Next week, we're talking about education. And we have, no, I take that back. We're realigning next week. We're not going to be talking about education until in September after school starts. Next week, I'm going to bring you something fresh and new, fresh off the cutting board. And we're going to have a good one then, too. So y'all have a good night. This is the end of the Blog Talk USA's #1 show, is my opinion. Thanks, Pops. I see you out there. Thanks, Mom, Sunshine, Ron, Bay, Stanley, all the other people that were on, that person that's from South Louisiana that I didn't get to. I hope you have turned back onto this to listen to this in the archive. Y'all can always follow me at Uku'u Rashidi on Twitter and on Instagram, and like the page on Facebook, the Gumbo Talk Show. I'm not going to tell you to friend me on Facebook because I'm trying to dwindle down friends. But I'm Brandon Johnson, Brandon with an E, not an O, the Gap Tooth Guru of Gumbo. Good night, y'all. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.